Imagine waking up tomorrow, turning on your faucet, and absolutely nothing comes out. You flip the light switch, and the grid is completely dead. This isn't a scene from a dystopian movie. Right now, 25 million Americans are standing on the edge of this catastrophic reality. And the trigger isn't a war, a cyber attack, or a sudden natural disaster. The trigger is a ticking time bomb, a fatal flaw hidden deep inside millions of tons of concrete at the Hoover Dam. Most people hear the word drought and think of dry lawns or shorter showers. But what is happening at Lake Mead goes far beyond a simple drought. Experts use a specific, terrifying term for it: dead pool. Dead pool doesn't just mean the lake is drying up. It is the absolute tipping point. It is the exact threshold where the water level drops below the dam's lowest intake valves. The moment that happens, the Hoover Dam's massive turbines physically cannot spin. The power grid collapses. Millions of gallons of water stop flowing downstream to farms, cities, and homes. In a single night, an entire civilization built in the desert loses its lifeline. Yet, if you turn on the TV, you've probably been sold a comforting lie. Politicians and news anchors have spent the last year celebrating a record-breaking winter snowpack, calling it a miraculous recovery. They want you to believe the crisis is over. But that is a dangerous illusion. That snowpack didn't fix the core problem. It merely pressed the pause button on an unstoppable collapse. Even with a frantic $6 billion emergency band-aid funded by the government, the fundamental math is still broken. The system is bleeding out faster than it can be saved. The sirens haven't stopped ringing, we've just chosen to ignore them. Let's take a drive away from the neon lights of Las Vegas, out into the scorching Mojave Desert toward the Black Canyon. As you approach Lake Mead, the first thing that hits you isn't the majesty of the water. It's a ghost, a blindingly stark, chalky white bathtub ring painting the canyon walls. This isn't just a stain on the rocks. This mineral scar is the height of a 10-story building. It stands as a silent, terrifying monument to trillions of gallons of water that have simply vanished into thin air. Look at the numbers, and the illusion shatters completely. When Lake Mead is full, the water sits at an elevation of 1,221 feet above sea level. Today, it's desperately fluctuating between 1,070 and 1,080 feet. To put that into perspective, this reservoir was designed to hold enough water to supply the lower basin for 9 full years. Now, it's sitting at roughly a 2-year supply, and dropping. The clock is ticking. But how did the most advanced nation on Earth engineer itself into a corner? To find the core of the rot, we have to travel over a century back in time. The year is 1922. Men in suits gathered to sign the Colorado River Compact, slicing up the river's wealth. They legally divided up 16.5 million acre-feet of water. There was just one massive, civilization-ending problem. They measured the river's flow during a fluke, an abnormally wet period in geological history. The river never actually had that much water to give. The real historical average was closer to 12 or 13 million acre-feet. They signed a check the river couldn't cash. For 100 years, the American West built gleaming cities, emerald golf courses in the desert, and massive agricultural empires based on a mathematical lie. And now, the bill has finally come due. But the mathematical error of 1,922 is only half the story. Nature is now delivering the fatal blow. If you think this is just another cyclical dry spell, a recent study from UCLA will shatter that comfort. By analyzing tree rings dating back centuries, scientists discovered we are living through the worst megadrought in 1,200 years. It's drier right now than during the fall of the Roman Empire or the darkest days of the Middle Ages. But drought implies it will eventually rain and recover. Climatologists are using a much darker word: aridification. The warming atmosphere is acting like a giant, invisible sponge. Even when snow falls in the Rockies, the parched, superheated soil absorbs the runoff before it ever reaches the Colorado River. The math was wrong from the start, and now the equation is completely broken. To understand what is truly at stake, you have to look inside the Hoover Dam itself. This isn't just a thick wall holding back a lake. It is a terrifyingly massive machine. Built during the Great Depression, it contains enough concrete to pave a 2-lane highway from San Francisco all the way to New York. 96 men gave their lives to build it. It stands as a mechanical heart, pumping the lifeblood of electricity to keep the American West alive. But right now, that heart is choking. Deep inside the dam are 17 main turbines. They rely on something called hydraulic head, the intense pressure of deep water pushing through the penstocks to spin the massive blades. It's simple physics. Less water in the lake means less weight pressing down. Less weight means less pressure, and less pressure means the turbines physically slow down. As Lake Mead drops, the Hoover Dam's energy output has already plummeted by 25 to 40%. The situation is so dire that engineers had to install special wide-head turbines, essentially backup equipment designed for dangerously low water. One of America's most critical power plants is barely running on life support. As the water plummeted, panic set in. Enter Pat Mulroy, the former water czar of Las Vegas. For years, she was dismissed as a doomsday prepper, a fearmonger. But while others hoped for rain, she prepared for the apocalypse. Under her watch, Las Vegas executed one of the most desperate engineering feats in modern history. They called it the third straw. They spent a staggering $4 billion to drill a 3-mile tunnel directly into the deepest, deadest bottom of Lake Mead at an elevation of just 860 feet. But make no mistake, this is not a solution. It doesn't add a single drop of new water to the system. It is simply a billion-dollar life raft designed to let Las Vegas suck up the very last drops of muddy sludge while the rest of the Southwest dies of thirst. And that death is already happening. We don't need to look at computer models. We just need to look at Pinal County, Arizona. When the federal government finally declared an official water shortage, these farmers were the sacrificial lambs. They were the first to have their Colorado River water entirely shut off. Generations of family farming were wiped out in a single season. Thousands of acres of lush crops have reverted back to cracked, barren dust, and they are just the canary in the coal mine. The Imperial Valley, the place that grows America's winter vegetables, is staring down the exact same barrel. But as the water retreats, it's not just leaving behind dead farms. It is uncovering a horrifying graveyard. The receding waterline has begun to expose things that were never meant to see the light of day. In May 2022, boaters made a gruesome discovery stuck in the mud. A rusted metal barrel containing human remains, a victim of a 1970s Las Vegas mob hit. Since then, more bodies have surfaced. Sunken speedboats jut out of the dry dirt. Even a World War II-era landing craft, once submerged nearly 200 feet deep, is now sitting completely exposed under the desert sun. The lake is literally draining its own history, turning from a symbol of American triumph into an active crime scene, and a forensic warning of what's to come. The terrifying truth about Lake Mead is that nature isn't the only thing pushing it toward dead pool. It's human stubbornness. And the clock is about to strike midnight. In 2026, the century-old guidelines that govern the Colorado River will officially expire. What we are watching right now is the most catastrophic Mexican standoff in American history. On one side, you have the upper basin states like Colorado and Utah. Their argument? We haven't even used our full legal allocation yet. Why should we take the hit? On the other side, the lower basin giants, California and Nevada, they fire back. We are the economic engine of the country. We have the most people. We've spent billions on recycling. We cannot cut anymore. And meanwhile, Mexico is standing at the border, pointing to an international treaty that legally demands its 1.5 million acre-feet of water, no matter what. For exactly 100 years, every politician, every engineer, and every farmer has known the original math was fundamentally flawed. Yet, driven by greed and the primal instinct to survive, no one is willing to step back from the edge. So, the arguments continue. The bureaucracy stalls. But the river doesn't care about our treaties. The white ring on the canyon walls just keeps climbing higher, marking every year of delay with a chalky scar burned into the stone. The dead pool elevation of 895 feet is no longer a dark prediction. It is a destination.